There are now two teams remaining in the chase for the Lombardi Trophy. Unfortunately, one of them is in the NFC West, which gives us an even better reason to bring you the NFC West Huddle, Super Bowl edition, Part 1. I'm Aaron Levine in Seattle, joined by our experts from around the division. In the Bay Area, we have Frank Malakote. In Arizona, it's Robbie Baker, and in Los Angeles, we have Nick Boffman. Before we look ahead to Super Bowl 60 next week, it was a very memorable NFC Championship game between the Seahawks and the Rams last week, the Seahawks winning that one by 4 points. We're very gracious winners up here in the Pacific Northwest, so let's have L.A. give the first word. Nick, give me your overall takeaways from that game.
Yeah, it was a game between two of the best teams in the league. Obviously between the Rams and the Seahawks, and honestly, we knew it was gonna be a slugfest, and it came down to who executed better. Now, as far as the Rams, the muff punt by Xavier Smith, not being able to convert on fourth down deep inside the red zone, and then ultimately not being able to get a stop in enough time to drive downfield and have a chance to score another touchdown late in the fourth, were the difference makers there. But honestly, shout out to the Seahawks. I mean, they played the better game, and they got 2 out of 3 on the Rams, and the one that mattered the most. So those are the big differences. It just came down to who executed, in my opinion.
Okay, we'll go to a couple of neutral perspectives from the rest of the division. Frank, what'd you think about that game down in San Francisco?
Well, it was hard to watch because, of course, our 49ers missed out there. But I think it was the best two teams in football going toe-to-toe. I really do. I think it's number 1 against number 2. No offense against the Patriots or the AFC, but I think the Rams are definitely number 2, Seattle number 1. In fact, I think the 3 games they played all season long may have been the 3 best games in the NFL. I put the scores together, and if you combine them all, granted Seattle won 2 out of the 3, but the final score would be 88-85. So think about it. Those 3 teams really put on a show. A 4-point differential, a 1-point, and a 2-point differential. Matthew Stafford should be your MVP. He's 37, lights out in that game. Puka Nacua, if you're not the first pick in the fantasy draft next year, you should be. And it opened my eyes. JSN, heard a lot about him. I've seen him, but my guy, that guy can ball, man. He had, 153 yards and a touchdown. I think it also put to bed the Sam Darnold, what people felt about him. You went to Minnesota, won 14 games, but you couldn't get over the hump and win a playoff game. Well, your best player arrives on the biggest game of the year, and he just played great. 346 yards, 3 touchdowns. And it's also a good memory that being the number 1 seed really does mean something. Think of the Rams. They had to go on the road to out to play the Panthers, to Chicago, and then finally to Seattle. And I think they just kind of ran out of gas. And despite giving up 27 points to the Rams, who played very well against Seattle's defense, that defense is just killer. And I think they have a real good shot of going all the way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that Week 18 game in San Francisco determined so much because it gave the Seahawks the top seed overall in the NFC, along with that first-round playoff bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Robbie, what were your thoughts on the NFC title game down in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, I think echoing a lot of what you already heard here, I think the better team won on that given day. And I said on the show last week, I kind of favored Seattle in that game just because it was at home. We talked about the home field advantage, as Frank just alluded to, being the number 1 seed. And the 12s get going there. It is an electric atmosphere, as you very well know, Aaron. Kind of off the board a little bit, though, takeaways from both, if you loop in the AFC Championship game as well. My first kind of thought watching all these games last weekend was that dome stadiums are the worst. Any team that's leaving an outdoor stadium to go to a dome stadium, just watch these games from this last Sunday. The snow in Denver and then the beautiful starry night in Seattle. That atmosphere looked electric. The dome stadiums, they just do not stack up. I'm very glad that San Francisco is hosting the Super Bowl this year because I like the outdoor atmosphere of these big games.
I'm a lot more excited that it's at Levi's Stadium compared to East Rutherford, New Jersey in the middle of winter. That was a couple of Super Bowls ago for the Seahawks. As for me, I know a lot of Rams fans feel like they are a Xavier Smith muff punt away from winning that game, or even a touchdown on their final drive away from winning. And I would counter, though, that the Seahawks being an incredibly dumb taunting penalty away from running away with that game as well. I mean, if Reek Woolen shuts his mouth after breaking up that third down pass, pass. The Seahawks get the ball back with an 11-point lead late in the third quarter, and I don't think the Rams would get much closer after that. Instead, there isn't anyone more relieved that the Seahawks won that game than Reek Woolen, because he would have been persona non grata for many years to come here in Seattle had they lost that game. More importantly, Frank touched on it, Sam Darnold deserves a ton of credit, and it's not just for his 3 touchdown passes. It's the fact that he and the Seahawks avoided a single turnover against the Rams, and that was a Rams team that had forced 7 turnovers against the Seahawks in the previous 2 games this season. The team that has won the turnover battle has gone on to win the last 6 playoff games going back to the divisional round. So it shows the importance of taking care of the football. And again, no one knows that more than the Rams' Xavier Smith. All in all, though, really put an exclamation point on the last 2.5 months of the Seahawks season. Undefeated since their loss to the Rams back in November, 9 straight wins, twice against the Niners, twice against the Rams. They really earned this trip to the Super Bowl, which is more than I can say for the Patriots, by the way, given their cupcake schedule this season. Good start to the show. Up next, our first thoughts on Super Bowl 60 between the Seahawks and New England Patriots. That's coming up next here on the NFC West Huddle. Welcome back. Up next, the Super Bowl featuring the Seahawks and Patriots. Seattle currently a 4.5-point favorite. Robbie, give me your initial thoughts on this matchup.
It feels like it's leaning towards the Seahawks here, right? Perhaps a chance to exercise some of those Marshawn Lynch-sized demons, if you will, up there in Seattle. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, Aaron. But this just feels like the Seahawks, I don't know, running away with this game, but they just look like the better football team. Even, just the eye test. Sam Darnold's been playing great. That defense is the makings of an all-time defense. And yes, the Patriots had a good season. Yes, they did well in the playoffs, but they didn't have as tough. They're not as battle tested, I guess, if you will, as the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks had to go through the gauntlet of the NFC West, minus the 2 Cardinal games, and battle their way through the NFC in the playoffs. The Seahawks, or the Patriots, didn't quite have the same battles to get to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, Mike Vrabel's going to have the boys ready. Drake May is having an incredible season, but especially if that Seattle Seahawks defense shows up like it should in the Super Bowl, I think Seattle's going to be bringing home the Lombardi Trophy.
Hey, I got to give the Cardinals some credit, because that was a battle down in Glendale earlier this year on Thursday Night Football. I even spent time in Richard Saenz' trailer before that game, hanging out there. That was a fun one. Came all the way down.
And you made it out alive, so that's a win for you.
I did. Despite the 1,500 cameras inside that thing, I felt like I was on an episode of Big Brother. I will go next, and I'll be the first to admit I barely know a thing about this version of the New England Patriots, because the Seahawks have been so far removed from them this season. I mean, they didn't play anyone in the NFC West, talking about the Patriots. They dominated the Panthers before Carolina kind of found its stride this year. They beat Tampa Bay after the Bucs season started to decline, and they started the season losing to Pete Carroll and the Raiders at home. So conventional wisdom tells me the Pats had the easiest strength of schedule. They faced Justin Herbert, who didn't have much competent offensive line in the playoffs. They got a backup quarterback with Denver last week. I feel like the Seahawks are the significantly better team. Then again, that's what scares me. This is not a multiple game series. We all know anything can happen in the NFL any given Sunday. And we've seen this story with the Patriots before, with a young quarterback as an underdog in the Super Bowl against a team from the NFC West. 2001, Tom Brady, 14-point underdogs against the Rams. We all know what happened after that. This time, though, the Seahawks are just a 4.5-point favorite, but a lot of people think it should be more than that. I am cautiously optimistic that the Seahawks will win this game, but of course, they cannot take anything for granted. Frank, give me your initial thoughts on the Seahawks and Patriots in Super Bowl 60.
Well, first and foremost, I spent 27 years in news and sports out in New England and covered the Patriots from, 86 to 02. So I'm a little partial, and being a Bay Area guy, not a huge Seattle fan. But I put some numbers together. Offensively, Seattle averages about 28 points a game. The Patriots 29. Defensively, they give up 17. The Seahawks, the Patriots 19. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 in the NFL. So that's pretty evenly matched. But Aaron brings up a really good point. The Patriots had an awful season under Gerard Mayo last year. So they got a pretty easy schedule, and I looked at combined records of all their opponents, and the Pats come out at 91 and 147. Those were the teams they played. including the Raiders, as you mentioned. That's the 39% winning percentage. Seattle had to play the Rams and the 49ers, both of which made the playoffs, and they came in at 117 and 121, just a smidge under 500. So a tougher road to hoe to get there. As I mentioned, they had to beat the Rams and the Niners twice in the last 6 games just to get to where they did. Number 1 seed, they're rested. They're certainly tested with the teams they've played. Pats only average about 18 points a game, and I just don't think that's enough. And as you mentioned in Denver, Bo Nix plays that game, maybe a little better weather. That could have gone either way, and they only scored 10 points against what is a pretty good Denver defense. Drake May, maybe a wild card. He's 2-0 in the playoffs, but Lord knows what's going to happen in a Super Bowl for a guy that's in his sophomore season. 2 good defenses, but, my heart is with the Patriots, but if I'm putting a few ducats on the game, it's all Seattle.
Okay, and Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I love a good underdog, and that's exactly what the Patriots are in this matchup against the Seahawks. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, when they beat the Broncos, yes, Jared Stidham, I understand he threw up a gimme to Christian Gonzalez at the end of the game, but I mean, that's snow. That makes a difference. And you still have to go up against that Broncos defense. So, I don't want to count the Patriots out in this matchup at all. In fact, my little brother is a lifelong Patriots fan, and he's a whole heart believer that they're going to win this Super Bowl. But I mean, when you watch the Seahawks, dude, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't think anybody in the league can guard him right now. I mean, the Rams are having problems with him all night. He's scoring, catching the ball at will. Like you said, Sam Darnold, he seems to be very comfortable now that he's finally proved to everybody that he got over that stump. And we'll see what happens, though, because it is the Super Bowl after all. And, everybody's playing their hardest because, that's what you do. That's how you make it to the Super Bowl. You're not going to stop when you get to the Super Bowl just because you're the underdog. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the game is the game. It's played on the turf, on the grass in this instance, not paper. But if I had to choose, I'd got to say Seattle gets the edge.
Yeah, well, listen, you mentioned the whole underdog story, and I have to look this up, but I believe the underdog is won outright the last 4 out of 5 Super Bowls, something like that. They've done very well over the last 5 or 6 years. Okay, let's ask one more question before this break. Give me the best take you made on the show this season and the worst take you made on the show. I'll take this one first. I'll start with my worst take. And that's Devin Witherspoon ending the season with at least 5 interceptions and 5 sacks. He was woefully short of both of those marks with only 1 interception and half a sack. It turns out the Seahawks defensive front was so good that it didn't really need a lot of help from getting pressure from the secondary as well on opposing quarterbacks. As such, they did not need to have Witherspoon blitz as much as he did last year. But I also think there's a reason Witherspoon was a Pro Bowler and a second-team All-Pro this season. Teams still fear him. So I might have been far off on those critical stats, but he still had a fantastic year. Meanwhile, I'm going to credit myself for 2 takes. First, that everyone was sleeping on the Seahawks this offseason, and that I simply did not understand why Vegas was picking them dead last in the NFC West. I thought they had an incredible value at 5 or 6 to 1 to win this division. And I know I had a lot of people laughing at me when I said it. I just wish I would have gone the extra step and said that they would be Super Bowl contenders as well. And my second take, saying A.J. Barner was a solid dark horse as a backup tight end for fantasy leagues and that he'd have at least 5 touchdowns this season. Barner not only scored 6 touchdowns, but he was also 16th overall in fantasy points among tight ends. That qualified him as a very solid backup tight end when he went virtually undrafted in most fantasy drafts at the beginning of the year. Nick, you're next. Best and worst take on the show this season. I know you haven't been on the show very often, so you can come up with anything else that you might have heard on the show along the way.
Yeah, like you just said, I haven't had too many takes on this show. But, in the spirit of positivity, we're just going to keep it with my positive take. And that was last year, a little obvious one that still needs to be proven. But I'm going to stand on it, and I do think that's what's going to happen, as I think most of us, and that it's the Super Bowl champion is coming out the NFC West. I got to stick with Seattle in this one, as I just mentioned, given that I have very limited takes, but that gives me an opportunity to be very efficient in my takes. So we're just going to stand on that positive one, and let's just keep it moving from there.
Yeah, listen, we'll just give you, you're saying you're batting 1,000. I absolutely love it. Frank, give me your best and worst takes on the show this season.
All right, worst take. I think I took Jacksonville and Houston in the opening round, and I had Jacksonville going to the Super Bowl. All right. So that didn't work out too well. Thank you, Buffalo, and thank you, New England. Good take. Obviously, Seattle. It's awfully hard to root for you guys because you're a big rival, NFC West, but they were clearly, after they won at Week 18, it was clear that all roads went through Seattle. That number 1 seed was huge, and I picked them long before the 49ers went up there and lost. My final take is I'm never going to root against Richard's Chimichangas. I've learned that they are the supreme team in all of Arizona, and I bow at the Chimichangas. And in Richard's mind, I'm going to start keeping a diary. I think that's probably a pretty good idea.
I think that's a great idea. One thing you shouldn't do is be influenced by Richard in terms of taking fantasy selections, because I took Kyler Murray as my quarterback.
That was a big mistake.
Yeah, among other offensive weapons the Arizona Cardinals had that either didn't produce or simply got hurt early on in the season. Speaking of the Cardinals, Robbie, what were you right about and what were you wrong about?
Yeah, so follow me here for a second. Viewers of the show and fans know that going back to last year, Richard and I were very much on the Geno Smith, not that guy in Seattle. We kind of beat that drum all season. I'll say that ended up being a good take because he got to Vegas and turns out he was not that guy. We go to this season, and Richard and I were very hard this year on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, not that guy. He can't get it done. Sam Darnold, not that guy. Turns out that was a bad take. Sam Darnold is indeed that guy. So Richard and I are going to have to eat our words there. Sam Darnold turns out to be the guy. He's not seeing ghosts anymore, and he's probably 2 weeks away from being Super Bowl champion. So, we hit one, missed one there.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I had that clip ready to play a couple of weeks ago when Richard was on the air. We just ran out of time at the end of the show. Okay, we're going to take one more break and come back with another topic here on the NFC West Huddle. Back here on the NFC West Huddle as we move to our last topic or two. We'll see how much time we have. First off, what is the biggest fix your team needs to make going forward in order to become a Super Bowl contender? Robbie, conventional wisdom makes us believe Arizona has the most work to do at this point. So what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, you said in the break we had 5 minutes left for the whole show. I could probably eat up 10 minutes right here. I don't know where to start with what the Cardinals need right now. I guess we'll just start at the top. They need a coach, right? 2 days, reportedly, Mike LaFleur was here. They go to dinner. He's here for a second day of interviews. At some point, we thought this week we would get the Mike LaFleur expected to be named the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Instead, what we got was a Diana Rossini tweet that was, hey, flying under the radar, Ron Rivera is interviewing for the Cardinals job. And we all said, what is going on here with this coaching search? There is a reason, I believe, that the Raiders and the Cardinals are the last 2 head coaching openings right now. I'm kind of surprised the Raiders don't have a coach because you got Ashton Genty, you got Brock Bowers, you're going to probably get Fernando Mendoza. The Cardinals, this whole thing feels like a mess right now. The Browns found a head coach before the Arizona Cardinals, and that situation feels like a mess too with what they're doing, a quarterback and everything. At this point, I think most of us in the Fox 10 sports department have put in an application for the Cardinals head coaching position because at this point it doesn't, just get an interview, get some experience. It doesn't hurt us to throw our hat in the ring. It is very tough, dark times. It feels like the Ben Affleck meme of hello darkness, my old friend. Every day we're clinging to something good with this coaching search, and every day it just feels like another 2x4 to the face here.
Well, Robbie, I wish you the best of luck in that potential job, and if you need a reference, just let me know. I also think the Raiders might be waiting on Clint Kubiak up here in Seattle to see how the Seahawks do and wait for after the Super Bowl. He's planning on interviewing this week virtually. Frank, you're next. What is the biggest fix for the Niners this offseason?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. They just got to stay healthy. They were the 3rd most injured team in the NFL this year. And as Shanahan has come in back in 2017, they're the most injured team since 2017 overall. So Nick Bosa out 14, Fred Warner out 12, George Kittle out 6. 3 Hall of Famers right there. Throw in Michael Williams, who was their top draft pick. He missed 8 games. Brock Purdy, by the way, missed 7 with a turf toe. And you can throw in Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings and Bryce Huff. For some reason, all their star players seem to get hurt. They could use a dominant pass rusher. They're going to get Bosa back, but it'd be nice to have a bookend, a younger guy on the other side. And they need a receiver after watching Puka Nacua and JSN in that game last week. It's like, My kingdom for a wide receiver that can do what those two guys did in that game. I think this team would soar.
Okay. Thanks, Richard III. How about down to L.A. and Nick? Biggest fix with the Rams?
Well, I just want to start off by saying, Robbie, I grew up and I am still a Cardinals fan, unfortunately. It's really rough for me, as it is out in the desert for all of y'all. So I just want to say that I
feel for you, Nick.
please.
I feel for you, man.
Thank you. It's hard. It's hard. It's really hard on Sundays, but we can figure it out. Come on, Cardinals. Come on, Red Sea. It's bound to happen eventually. But I do want to say that for the Rams, a couple things. Special teams is something that needs to be situated. That cost the Rams a big part of a couple games that could have made a difference in the long haul. Missed kicks, kicks being blocked, you name it. It's been ugly. Muff punts, as we just saw. So that's something that needs to get situated as they figure out what their coaching situation goes on there. And also, we're going to have to start talking more about Matt Stafford. He looked great. As you said, he's going to be the MVP, as at least one would assume, as he should be. But we all know he's on the tail end of his career. And while nobody on the Rams wants to see him go yet because he's looked so awesome, it's a bit inevitable at this point. So got to figure out what's going to happen after Matt Stafford. What does life look like after Matt Stafford? Because he's such a big deal to the offense and he leads them in a way that when he's missing and that leadership is missing, who knows what it'll look like with a guy that's less proven as Matt Stafford. So those are the two biggest things I have to say as far as the Rams right now that glare coming right onto the offseason.
Yeah, I hope the future for Matt Stafford, or the future for a Rams team without Matthew Stafford, is sooner rather than later. As for Seattle, I honestly don't think it's a real fix. I think it's a matter of mindset and staying just as hungry next year as they were throughout this season. And that's tough to do whenever you make the Super Bowl, whether you win or not. We've seen so many teams lose the Super Bowl and then struggle mightily the following year. And then just look at the Eagles this season. They won the Super Bowl last year, and there was something missing with this year's team. Sometimes when you make it to the top of the mountain, sustaining that success ends up being the toughest struggle going forward. But the Seahawks overall in a really good position. Their core is fairly young. They drafted really well. And recently, they also have the fourth most salary cap space heading into this offseason. And they have a quarterback that can win games for them, which was the big question mark coming into the year. That's going to do it for this week's version of the NFC West Huddle. Part 2, Super Bowl edition, coming up next week. Have a great one, everyone.